What's up, everybody? How you doing out there in Rock Nation? Good to see you for the very first episode of... Sorry, I was winded. Woo! I had to run down and open my beer. Hey, cheers to you. Zipline in the house. Local, Lincoln, brew. Shout out already. My name is Mike Semrad. I am with the Nebraska Performing Arts Hall of Fame, and we have a very, very special show tonight. Let me catch my breath. Woo! Awesome. I'm stoked. This is great. I'm going to start, just kind of give you an overview of what's going on. We are inviting on some massive, massive rock and roll, Nebraska rock and roll trailblazers who kind of set the scene late 80s, early 90s, and inspired tons of bands. I mean, this is legendary for me to do. This is a dream come true, really. That's why I'm so excited. Some of these people inspired me. When I was 17, growing up I grew up in Lincoln, moved to Grand Island. So we used to hang out at a place called the skate park. And we went, I remember the night my brother asked me if I wanted to go. And I was apprehensive, of course, not knowing what I was getting myself into, but I did. And thank God I did. That night, Mercy Rule played, and Sideshow played, and I believe a couple local bands played. And it changed my life. Changed my life from that point on. I became obsessed with punk rock music, rock and roll music, loud rock. The only concert I had seen before that was the Bangles and Mr. Mister here in Lincoln. And I got invited backstage, but it was nothing like that. Yeah, I got to say hats off to Sideshow and Mercy Rule. And so I'm just going to start inviting these people on. And if you have any questions, please comment because this conversation is going to be very organic, and we'll talk stories as we need to and kind of jump into stuff as we need to. But this is going to be a very organic experience. So please ask what you will, and we'll see what happens. But all right. First person I want to invite on is I'll give an introduction real quick. Mr. Bernie McGinn started Caulfield Records in probably, I believe, 1988, and released his own band and Sideshow, and then began releasing a slew of great albums after that, including Mercy Rule. And so I'm going to invite him on. This is Mr. Bernie McGinn. Hello, Bernie. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Awesome. Do we have your... There you go. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So, hi. So, we're just start inviting people on.
Let's
Are you
do
cool
it.
with that?
I love it.
I love Bernie. Good to see you, brother. Okay, now here's Mr. Paul Tisdale. There's Paul. Paul, good to see you. Welcome
Hi, Bernie.
Wait.
Hi. Hey, Bernie.
Hey, dude.
I don't know if you recognize me because I'm growing my hair out too. So it's like
You've got the COVID fro going on there. I love it.
it's like I can pluck
COVID
at
Pro. COVID Pro.
it. Yeah, well, stuff just bounces off. It's like
So Paul Tisdale's the...
well, go ahead.
Oh, it's fine. I
Don't let
was
me
just going to tell
interrupt.
people. Go ahead. You can tell people who you are.
I'm
Paul's one of the
Paul.
greatest local artists, but he's also an incredible drummer.
I'm not going to accept
Yeah,
compliments.
just a
tonight.
fantastic person.
Makes me eared.
That's fine. I'll stop. I'm going to shower you with them. So, okay. And
Bernie.
then I'm going to invite.
That's awesome.
I'm going to invite Heidi Orr and John. Here we go. Let's invite them. Hi, guys.
What?
There they are.
Is this on? Are you in there?
I think
Is this thing on?
I think it's on, John. I think we got it.
Is he?
Yep.
Mike's in there.
Just knock twice.
Okay, Mike.
That's like every meeting I've had at work ever.
Awesome. Yeah.
Hello.
This is nowhere near a work meeting, so I'm going to kind of stay out of the way the best I can. But I want to, if you don't mind following just a little bit of structure, I want to go way back. I want to go back before 13 Nightmares and before before everything and talk about early influences just for a second, because I'm personally curious. Bernie, if you could tell us, how did you get into music and how did you begin rock and roll?
Well, for me, it was my mom's record collection.
Nice.
She had a modest stash of records, all the early Beatles records, and we, my sisters and I, destroyed them all, listening to them over and over and over. So that's like I would play the tennis racket and want to be in a rock and roll band.
Nice.
So, and then flash forward, I don't know, like 8 or 10 years, I grew up next to Rich Flowerday's skateboard ramp, and that was sort of the epicenter of, like, obviously skateboarding in Lincoln, Nebraska, but all the punk rock kids and stuff that was going on there. And so
right.
I vividly remember wearing my Beatles t-shirt and getting hassled for it because the Beatles weren't cool, but I was also 10. But anyways, and so that's how I got introduced to punk rock and like the DIY aesthetic. And I first met John Taylor. Absolutely.
So what year did you meet John? Skateboard ramp. Yeah, what year did you meet John?
That was probably 84 or something 84. Like that, I bet. Okay. Back in the...
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah.
Yeah.
3 or 4 or 2. 82,
okay.
3 or 4.
Yeah. Did you guys go to school together?
No, I was like in junior high.
And everybody, you meet people like Bernie at Rich Flowerday's skateboard ramp.
Right.
Skating and music was all one thing back then.
Right. Yeah, and Bernie, you actually took photos later in life, or even at that time, right? You were a photographer and had some photos in Thrasher magazine, right?
Yeah, for a spell,
which is like
was a photographer. So, anyways, yeah, it was just one of a couple things I did. But
unbelievable, yeah.
Anyway, so getting involved in punk rock, and then going to the Brickyard, which was the local indestructible brick room that right. You could play loud rock and roll shows and
right.
Yeah, pretend to be in a band and then actually do it. Or
that was like that was like an all ages venue, right? For
it wasn't even a venue; it was just a party space. I think it started out of as a like frats would have keggers there.
Oh, okay.
So it's this green building there. Where is it? 17th and Holt.
It's gone now.
It's still there. It's apartments.
I mean, it's
apartments. There. Yeah. Anyways, so it was a party space, and then somebody got the bright idea that it would be great to have punk rock shows there, and it sort of lived on there for 2.5 years or so, and
yeah,
all our bands got our like the first start to play music there.
That's all it takes. Now, I just because I'm curious, Paul, tell us about your earliest music influences, please.
Oh, well, it had to have been my brother Motley playing The Clash and T-Rex and Sex Pistols, who I never really enjoyed, wow. But that's what it was. But he would blast them from his room, and every time I'd try to creep in and get the hell out of here, I was like, okay, so I was never invited in. But then in junior high, I fell in love with Gary Newman and New Wave, and the coolest looking people were New Wave and everything. I should have been goth. I don't know what went wrong. I mean, that was like, maybe it was just too goofy, and I didn't, but I loved that kind of stuff, Bauhaus. And so then, after being recruited into Peer Puppet forcefully, I just ended up loving thrash and punk rock and anything fast as it can be. Even the faster, the sillier, the better, because I loved it. So, and that was my descent into what you see before me. Before you, but I
do have some.
But itches. No, but I just in general, then music, and I was pretty narrow-minded, I think, back then, because I just only wanted to listen to new wave and punk rock, and then something happened a little bit later where I accepted all forms of music, except for Viking music. I'm not a fan of. Right. But other than that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
You're gonna stick to it.
Damn it!
That's awesome. I do have some Peer I do have some Peer Puppet takes that I dug up from the archives, and luckily
funny,
was
real
able
quick,
to obtain
shout
from a
real
secret
quick.
source. I will not.
Oh, I also have to thank my mom for putting up with it too.
100%.
My brother had his band Society's Grudge
Yes.
with Jake Ryan and Tim Thorpe, and they played in my mom's basement. And then Peer Puppet came along and played in my mom's basement. And I can't even imagine. I think she just left. She's like, "Okay, they're here. See ya." But she was so encouraging of it. She didn't care, just don't do drugs down there and get people pregnant and you'll be fine. Whatever. I don't know.
Right.
But she was so welcoming to the punk rock idea. So, and she's a musician.
And plus 100 to that. Christy Tisdale just kind of signing over her basement and her quiet afternoons to a crazy hardcore thrash band.
Beginning a punk rock band.
Is that where
Angel.
The band, is that where the band practiced?
Yes.
Yeah.
The King Flipper Green Door Lounge is what it was called.
Nice. Okay. That's incredible. I love it. Well, and Heidi, tell us about your earliest music memories.
Well, I also my parents had the Beatles on reel-to-reel tape.
Sure.
Not the early Beatles, like the weird Beatles, like the White Album, and just the weird stuff. And I loved that, and I loved Sgt. Pepper. I think I played that and the Aristocats, Disney record back and forth all the time. But I think punk rock came to me when I bought a Replacements record. Sorry, Mom, I forgot to take out the trash. And it blew me away. And that and X, we got to see them at the Drumstick, and I was hooked.
Yeah.
I also used to play bass to Kiss songs with my friends in junior high. So I guess I wanted to be in a band, and I also wanted to play bass. But I played the drum instead of a tennis racket. Or a broom.
A broom. Yeah. That's awesome.
You make do, right?
You make do.
And now the bass guitar is my other pretend instrument.
That's awesome. I would say that's a total false statement. I think you're one of the best. So John and I have personally had conversations about music and his upbringing, his influences and everything. But I'm curious, what were the earliest things to crack the John egg, so to speak?
I think I'm trying to remember. 6 or 7, 8, 9 years old. It would have been early 70s, and I remember having 45s, having singles, and playing like Edgar Winter Group Frankenstein. I remember, going to the store and picking that out. I had the 45 edition, but I remember having like Archie's 45 off of the back of cereal boxes.
Funny.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So the flexi discs that they would put records. They should keep doing it. It's a great idea.
Monster Mash.
Yeah. So I had 45s, and then right as I hit like 8, 9, and 10, that's when I tried to learn guitar. Couldn't figure it out. I had a friend across the street show me, here's how you do it. You play along with records, right? So this would have been 73, 4, or 5. And that's a really great time to learn to want to play guitar, because you have Kiss and AC/DC and Cheap Trick. Some, as far as mainstream rock, you have some really cool stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So it all happened kind of at the same time. So if you're learning guitar, in 75, 76, 77, you see what's going to be in the record store. So it's everything from, sticks to the Clash, and I had all those records. They, every band had one cool song.
Oh yeah, for sure. Sure.
Yeah.
That's incredible. I love hearing those stories, and it's kind of cheesy to say to ask those questions, but it's cool because for me to be influenced, and I was influenced by you guys. I was 17 and I saw you guys play at the skate park in Grand Island. And Grand Island, Nebraska had a skate ramp, and again, it was skateboarding that was the epicenter of music for us. And it was like somebody got the idea of building a ramp, and all the kids kind of migrated towards it, and it just blew my mind. I bought the Sideshow shirt with the sort of carnival star on it, and it changed my world. I mean, the whole thing, the night, the music. Somebody had a bottle of Jack Daniels outside. That was the first time I ever tasted that. What a night for all that to hit me at once.
Was that
anyway?
Was that with Leafy Green Things too? Was that show?
I want to say they were on the bill, and then there was like one or two Grand Island bands, Backwoods, and
oh gosh,
and a band called Vernshed, I believe, were on that show.
Wow.
Yeah, two Grand Island bands, and they were high school bands, and they were crushing it too. They were kind of our gods back then as well. So tell us about the first time that you guys. So Bernie and John met, and when did the John and Heidi thing begin? When did the John and Heidi band? How did that all not romantically? I'm just talking like
tantalizing.
Musically, romantically. How did the whole John Heidi thing begin? That's what
I know because it was 1982, and
you were there
freshman year of college, and so Heidi lived in Seward and went to Lincoln for school, and I went to Lincoln for school. So that's where we met, and became pals.
Sorry,
so we became pals.
Keep going, just 1 second. I'm listening.
No, that's super, and yeah, that's funny. So we became pals, but John was in a band called Spawning Carp.
I saw Spawning Carp at the Brickyard.
Yeah, David Zickman. Who else? Tober Swanson, and who else was in that?
Just some college guys.
Kids. They're playing stuff, and so
punk rock cover band.
Punk rock, but then we decided. How did you decide? John bought me a bass guitar, and I don't know why. Why did you buy me a bass?
I think you were in, when you're first starting bands, you're in and out of bands pretty routinely. And so when one band breaks up, you start another. And I think it was just, you got mixed up with the wrong crowd. You were there. And so I think at the same time we were starting, 13 Nightmares, you were there. And I think it was just fastest, easiest, because I knew Heidi had a real music background from choir. And so basically just tossed a bass at her and said, we need a bass player, and you're in the band. So
that's incredible.
That's how. It wasn't a big formal. It's not like we had auditions. It was like we had a show.
What if it was like a tuba? You toss a tuba at her. What would that have turned out like? That's kind of amazing.
It's funny too, because with Paul and getting recruited to Peer Puppet, it was sort of the opposite. It was like, you've got a drum kit in your basement, so you're the drummer now.
You're now the drummer.
Have drum kit. Should play.
That wasn't like John. That wasn't like the key to a woman's heart, like giving her a bass, right? That was like.
I did get it for Valentine's Day, if I remember correctly.
That's incredible.
But how hard could it be, right? Right, Bernie? How hard? No.
4 strings.
One note at a time, and you just kind of play. I will say, I can just be very thankful that John and Greg and finally Ron Alberton, they were very kind, and they never said, wow, you suck, or they never said you should take lessons, although other people who we played with did say those things. but my bandmates never did. They're like, they thought I was fine. So I was like, well, I guess I'm a bass player now. How fun.
Hi, Heidi. Here's your zither.
Yeah.
She stood there.
Or your
So-
hurdy-gurdy.
No one else has given me anything, so I haven't learned anything up to this point anymore. So,
Wow.
yeah, tuba would be good.
That's
Oh, tuba
incredible.
would be great.
I love tuba.
Yeah.
Just as a side note. Yeah.
So Mary McGinn, Bernie's sister, I believe, right? Yep.
Yes, that's my sister.
Yeah. Mary's a sweetheart. She says, "Hey Bernie, tell them about your first single."
Oh, the first single. So the Sideshow record. It was an interesting time. So Rich and
We're all
Paul and I
experimenting.
were in a band called Pure Puppet, like just a thrash band. Shout out to Ronnie Farmbrook, who was our original singer.
Right.
We consolidated into a 3-piece. I think we started. Actually, we were a pretty great thrash band, I think. For real.
Great.
In any case, we at the time, I think I sent our tapes out to record labels, like maybe you guys want to put out a record, and everybody's like, nah. But this was like 1986, 1987. The right thing to do was to put out your own record. So I can't remember the conversation exactly, but I brought up the subject with my mom, and she decided that because I needed money to put out our record, and so she co-signed a loan at Martell State Bank.
Joe is the coolest. I just gotta say, that's amazing.
100%.
Another great mom.
That's incredible. Good
So
moms.
my mom co-signed I think it was a $400 loan
Oh my
at
gosh.
Martell State Bank.
That's a lot of money.
And so that we pressed 500 records. We recorded this record as Pure Puppet, but in between the time that we sent the record off, and when it came back, we were like, we're not Pure Puppet anymore. We're Sideshow. And so we also, this is like the records have a sharpied out like Pure Puppet name.
We have
And we
one.
had a rubber stamp.
I love that. I love that.
And
That's fitting.
and so the other beautiful thing about Lincoln, Nebraska, was from way back in the day, the best record stores, the most amazing record stores, Dirt Cheap, Trade a Tape, and Pickles. All these, like, you probably couldn't find better record stores in the bigger cities. These folks were just so plugged in. And the key thing for kind of in hindsight is I knew at the time, maybe I was working at Pickles at the time. And so I knew all the people who we were buying records from at Pickles. And so my friend John Nanos, who bought records for Pickles, would say, "Hey, Bob at Revolver, my buddy has a punk rock band. You take on 50 singles and sell them." And they'd be like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." And so we kind of blew through the first 500 singles, and which was amazing. It got actual distribution, and so that's the first single.
It's by default.
I have a quick addendum to that story about how Pure Puppet got the shaft all the way around. I took it upon myself to take our Pure Puppet recordings that we actually recorded and put them on cassette, and I was going to sell cassettes. So what I did is I made a master cassette off of the recording. Then I taped the thing, right? And so when you run a tape to tape, the quality goes a little bit down on the, it just doesn't sound as good. So then I lost that first tape and used the recorded one. And I did maybe 20 or 30 of them and put them at tray to tape. And I made a monster head, and I put the Pure Puppet tapes in the monster head. And then I went back and I actually listened to it, because I didn't listen to it. I just figured it would sound great. I was like, it was the shittiest sound you've ever heard. And it was just so poorly made. But I still have heard a couple people go, "Yeah, I have that tape. It's like historical moment, and it sucks. It's so bad. I think I have one laying around here too, and it was so bad. I couldn't. And in fact, what I think I did too is being arty. I put like some of my music in there somewhere. I don't know. It was just
amazing.
Your puppet just
Good
never
job, Paul.
crossed that line.
Good job. We did a 13 Nightmares cassette like that. It Hurts to Be Murdered, and we
I have that.
Yeah, the DIY. That was what was really great. Bernie was doing.
It wasn't called DIY. It was called being a band. Bernie, real quick. But who was the first band? So you're talking like 85, 86. I was trying to figure out, well, who was the first weird band to leave town and play shows? Because bands were coming, JFA and Get Smart, bands were coming in to the Brickyard all the time. And then of course the Drumstick. But I was trying to think of the people that I might have known. I'm trying to, who left first? Who went and played out of town? It wouldn't, before 13 Nightmares, was there somebody? And I mean, there was, Charlie Burton.
Like Four Against was.
Yeah. Do you think?
Yeah, exactly.
They would have been.
They would have.
Charlie Burton was, he was rocking. Charlie Burton was touring for sure.
Yeah,
that was the first band. Charlie Burton, and then the Click, I assume, went out, but Charlie Burton, they were the first guys I probably met and talked to about touring.
Like they would have blues bars, like the Zoo or different things.
But they were playing out and selling records. And I'm trying to think of the people that we actually knew by name. Who would have that been? And then, but it was.
Here, Jim Jones here is saying the Click did small tours like Kansas City and Lawrence.
Yeah, I tell you, we've got Jim Jones waiting right here. Let's invite him in, shall we? Let's just bring him in. Let's bring him in. Here's Jim Jones, everybody, from the Brickyard.
Yay! Here I am. Hey, bitches!
So just a little overview. Jim Jones and I, we met online just this last week, and it's opened up so many doors for me to kind of go down that Brickyard rabbit hole. Now, Bernie mentioned the Brickyard earlier. It was just more of a frat place, and that they'd have private parties there. And Jim told me earlier that him and his brother just got the idea. I think that you were invited to play a show, like you said, and they liked you so much.
Society's Grudge played there. As Brian, they really got us into the Brickyard. He invited my band Pogrom to play. And it was it was all fraternity and sorority people there at the show. And I thought, they are not going to like us. And they actually did. They all danced. We had a great show. And then afterwards, we're like, they danced. We played in the middle of the Brickyard, and they made a circle around us, and then they just danced in a circle around us. It was super cool. So it changed my idea about frat and sorority people a little bit.
So at that point, Jim, did you start having all ages shows after that you produced?
Yes.
Okay,
Bill and I put on a bunch of shows.
So you were promoting them, basically. You were a promoter, right?
Yeah. And our bands would play too. It was because we were having so many problems with the Lincoln Police. We had been putting on shows for a couple of years, but we would rent different places, and it seems like the cops always found out about them and just came and busted heads.
In there. Mole.
But
somebody in the Lincoln punk rock scene is a mole for the Lincoln Police.
The beautiful thing, though, about the Brickyard in that context was right across the street from the Brickyard was the UNL police station.
Yeah, right.
And so they were
kind of a blessing.
They tolerated it for 3 years. It's amazing.
Yeah. That's
I think what's really important is that you can be in a band, but if you don't have a place to play, and if you don't have a way to record music, or if you don't have something to do with your band, it's just not as fun. So, I think, Mike, you really brought in some great elements here. We're only a small part of what was happening and what was going on, because, Jim also was putting out broadside tapes, where people had
Capital Punishment.
Oh, Capital Punishment.
Yeah, you jumped ahead.
I'm sorry, broadside. Sorry, but Capital Punishment. Tell us about that, Jim.
That's
well,
incredible.
in 1979, I went to London for the summer, and I went to Rough Trade, and there was all these fanzines that people were putting out, and a lot of them were crap. And I just thought, well, I could do this. This does not look hard at all. And so we came back to Lincoln, and there really wasn't much of a scene. 1980, there was a few bands, not very many. The Specs were going. There was a really weird band called AKA who were great. Violators, the Boys were playing. So there was a really tiny scene.
Terry Piper.
Yep. So we just, the first couple of issues, we just kind of made stuff up like there was something going on, and then slowly it really did start happening. People started forming bands and playing at shows, and like a scene developed, and it was great. It was really exciting.
So the Boys you mentioned, that was Phil Shoemaker, who's now in Shithook.
Yeah.
And the Boys were incredible.
And Terry Piper.
Drink.
Yeah. But to answer John's earlier question, Kevin Chosick mentioned it too here. I bet the Boys probably toured quite a bit.
Oh yeah, I think they did too. Yeah, they were really the first DIY Lincoln band, I think.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
They put their own singles out. They toured. Yeah.
They had great outfits. They had tight pants.
Yes. They were a little bit kind of on the glam side, so the punks were like, I don't know about the Boys, but they were really trailblazers, I think.
It was kind of
and Lincoln was too small to really discriminate. It's like, okay, we'll take them.
Right.
That's actually a great thing about growing up in that time, like that group of like misfit skate punk goth whatever, it was too small to discriminate. You're like, there's something that's different going on over here at the Brickyard or wherever. Let's go do it. And there would be the natural friction, but it was our community, and it was amazing. It was really good.
I went and saw. I was maybe 14, and Motley drugged me. Drugged you?
Drugged you?
And it was terrible. No, it was at the hall at 27th and Randolph, and it was A-Toy, Cartoon Pupils, maybe Pogrom. Am I saying that?
Yeah, we played.
Yeah.
Pogrom.
I was in shock because that was my first show ever. And it was bizarre. Like, there was Joel Lamson had raccoon eyes, and it was it was so beautiful. I loved it so much. And I went home and I chopped all my hair off and put a bunch of shit in my ears and stuff, and I loved it. And the hall just seemed to be very naturally a place to have shows. But I heard there were a lot of busts at the hall.
I think Jim, I think you bring up a really good point about this whole punk rock, this whole thing. I don't want to say scene because we were all going to yell about the scene, but I think that take a word, scene. It's when you said how hard could it be, and I could do that. I really felt like that was me playing bass. I'm like, how hard could it be? Look, this is simple music. It's not hard. Yeah, people are just having fun. This is going to be great. And I really appreciate that you brought that up, because I think that's been a theme song for, you brought that back from London and then completely changed everything, started things here in Lincoln, Nebraska, of all things. Wow. And we all glommed onto it. And Bernie, you were releasing records. People are in bands. People are doing things because they're like, how hard could this be? Well, this is fun. It was that. So thank you for just saying those words.
Well, plus
Well,
the thing I loved about Lincoln is that we really felt like we had to create our own entertainment, and
You
so I'm
did.
really glad that
Yeah.
I didn't grow up in a big city where it was already all just laid out there for you. We had to make it ourselves, which
We
I think
did.
is so much better. Yeah.
No, that's really true. And in Nebraska, you know, and that was like when touring bands would come through, and all of a sudden there was this little pocket of people, and of, you know, and we're very, you know, discriminated. We really like music, and if you were pretending or if you weren't good, we're like, we don't like you, because, you know, we were only playing for ourselves. It wasn't like there were A&R people you weren't trying to get signed. You weren't trying to impress anybody, because it was just us. It's just Lincoln. Nobody cares about Lincoln but us.
Yeah, I don't think any of these bands ever thought, "Oh, I'm going to make a career out of this."
No,
That just wasn't
nobody
even
did.
in the realm of possibility.
And the cool thing is, Lincoln was small enough that you automatically had a practice space somewhere. You had more free time to do it with, because there weren't, you know, you didn't have to vie for practice time or whatever. It's like, hey, there's an attic. Hey. So in a big city, you don't have an attic to go and sweat
Attic.
degree, you know, hot box. So
No, that's really true. I think when we started playing out more, you know, we got to talk to Wayne Coyne from the Flaming Lips, because they would come, and he slept on our floor, and we said, well, gosh, should we move? What should we do? Should we go to LA or Chicago, to a big city? And he said, no, don't move. He said, because touring bands get shows, local bands don't. And so you could go to a bigger city, and you could be a touring band, and you could do that, and then you could come back to your $300 a month rent house, crap house that you lived in, practice in the basement, and just do whatever.
totally.
Sorry.
Totally,
That's
man.
incredible.
Toads.
Well, I'll say that, you know, I'm watching the comments while I, you know, listen to you guys talk, and this is such an amazing joy. But there's been a few comments about how, you know, all of these bands, or your bands, are probably just as relevant, and I say that with respect, because, you know, again, I'll mention how I personally was influenced, but younger generations, even like younger than me, you know, like and I'm older, but you know, like 20 somethings are still influenced by the sounds of Domestica, and granted, you're still playing, but they're seeking out the sounds that came before that. Like, they're seeking out the sideshows and the mercy rolls, and it's pretty sweet, because
Can I get their names, please?
yeah, can I get the name? And it's true.
Their email addresses.
They can write a check, maybe.
Yeah,
or...
can you get them on your newsletter.
Yeah, really.
But I do want to.
I have my own line of cassette duplication services.
Still making copies.
Yeah,
It's gotten down to just like
been running nonstop
Yeah.
since like 80.
It's just like a Darth Vader breath at this point. Yeah.
Thousands of copies.
Paul's making
We're gonna make it, man. We're gonna do it.
I want to see the Yelp reviews for Paul's.
I will say the bands that seek that out, that seek those sounds out, you know, that do care about history, and you know, those bands are probably super kick-ass if they turn into bands, which many do. And I just want to say that you've influenced so many players, and I think that's...
Well, one other thing I'd like to say about the Lincoln scene is we were so lucky. We had so many people taking photos, people writing about it. You know, it's a really well-documented scene, and it's a scene that's not as well known as it should be. I think, you know, I've lived in other cities, and they're just they can't believe that we had a scene like we had in Lincoln. And so I kind of am sad about like the 60s. I'm sure there was that kind of stuff going on in Lincoln, but I just don't think it was documented. And we were just lucky to be at the right time where, you know, we're starting to think, oh, this might be, you know, a valuable thing to have somewhere down the line, or it's important to record this, or it's important to make a document of this. So I'm really glad we have all that stuff.
And Jim, we're coming to work secretly.
You, Bernie,
What's
your
that?
turn.
Oh, sorry. No, I love that idea, and I hope that people who are playing music in Lincoln, Nebraska today, these bands are documenting what they're doing. You know, it's not just the Facebook post or Instagram story here and there. That they can find ways to articulate what's going on in the moment right now.
Right. Well, and I think a big thing too is the fact that, you know, a lot of, for example, when I saw you guys, it was an all ages experience, and there's not much of that today. There's a few venues. The Bay is a big one. You know, there's a few other ones that are a bit more underground, which is awesome. What do you guys feel about the all ages scenario, and how did that affect what you did?
I have strong feelings about this.
Well, go ahead. Tell us what you feel. I want to know what you feel.
No, it's the most important thing, right? To make music available to people who need to hear it, right?
Yeah.
And we were so lucky that we had places to go see music when you're 14 and do your first stage dive or what, you know, that kind of thing. And beyond that, like, as it evolved, as we were whatever in our mid-20s playing rock and roll and later, like, eager to play music for at all ages shows. And so whether it was convincing Reg to do all ages shows at Duffy's, right? Or, you know, doing 2 shows a night. Okay, Sideshow and Mercy Roll at 6 to 9 for all ages, and then from 10 to 1 for 21 up. Or seeking out other alternative spaces, like the Wagon Train Project or the Commonplace. Like, you guys have this big university, and they've got big empty rooms, and like, please, like, put rock and roll in them every night and get rock and roll to the kids. So huge all ages shows is the best. It spawns so much more.
Can I take it upon myself to one very special guest on right now? I want to invite him in because this kind of capitalizes on what you just said. This is little brother Brendan McGinn's in the house.
Hey. Yeah.
Brendan?
Hi, brother Bernie. I'm gonna also give a big 100% on the all ages thing, and it was amazing to continue to book shows at what we called the Culture Center. Culture Center, right?
The Commonplace was the old name. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But let's see.
It took me a second after you said that because I remember the Culture Center. Our generation, Brendan and I played music together in a lot of the same shows.
I'm so old.
But so the like in maybe 1992-ish, I got to go tag along with Bernie and got to see Mercy Rule's first show. I believe it was at the Commonplace, the Culture Center.
It was.
Wow.
Yep.
And you guys released a cassette tape, I believe, around that time.
The orange one?
Yeah, exactly, with the sticker. But I mean, I was 12, and I got to click through MTV. You see the rock stars, but then to see 20-year-old kids doing it and putting their heart into it, I learned it shaped me so much. Seeing John, the puddle of sweat at John's feet at the end of a show, or to see at the end of summer at the Malone Center was another one, right? But John leaning back and diming his amp, set all the 10 and feedback, and then knocking his amp off the cabinet, and that just blew my mind. It's like, and he's like, it's just a jack. I can just fix out a jack. And I mean, I have so much, along with Sideshow, of course. I could go on forever about that, but like Mercy Rule, I saw John for the first time maybe when I was 7 or 8 or something. It was late, and this person who was like 7 feet tall to me was at the front door in a black leather jacket and jeans and boots, probably, and hair down to his shoulders or past his shoulders, and I was just totally intimidated and scared. And then later, John worked in the repair shop at Dietz downtown, and I remember standing on my tippy toes to look over the half wall to see him working on guitars, and I wanted to do that when I grew up.
That's incredible.
And so just amazing stuff.
That reminds me. Props to John Taylor for being the band van loft builder extraordinaire. Like I remember Sideshow was we got a new van and we're gonna go on tour in like 5 days, and it's like his cargo van empty thing, and John's like takes his lunch break and comes over to the Duffy's parking lot and like has a 2x4s, and he's like, we're building you a loft, and like zip, 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 and we're off and running. Like John, thank you for building us loft in our van.
Absolutely, because I spent most of my time on that loft, so that's where I live, was on the loft.
But I guess it's also just a testament of community and
oh, absolutely. I just felt like Lincoln bands were doing anything for each other. There was none of that cutthroat, like, oh, you guys are crap. We're better than you. You got none of that in Lincoln.
So can I ask real quick, what does this thing mean to Heidi and John?
I think it's just isn't that a St. Christopher medal?
It's on a key, though.
On a key.
Do you remember what that is?
Does it mean anything to you?
I think it must mean something important.
There's somewhere a box out there that needs help from me.
So this comes from my archives. This was on the key ring of the van that Boz Hicks bought for her Flyway Manor that you guys took care of, featured in the insert photo of Providence. So then
the Chevy Beauville van, 1986 Chevy Beauville van.
Yeah.
I love that van. I loved it with all my heart. Yeah, maybe that was what guided that kept us going all across the country.
Kept us safe.
Yeah.
That's really sweet.
So I mean, it was an honor. Like this is kind of again what's, I don't know, so important to me, like to be traveling around in a van that had survived an accident, and with the rule of no cruise control after dark.
Right.
No cruise control after dark.
After 10.
After 10. Do you remember when you open the hood that somebody had documented all the oil changes?
Yeah, we didn't do that.
And then John wrote at the end, "Mercy Rule dooms this van."
Yeah.
We did not document the oil changes after
No, we did not. Oh, we did change the oil, and we kept it clean all the time. That one had a bed in the middle and the loft on the top, so you could take naps during the day. It was a leisurely touring. It was.
Oh, that's horrible.
It was great.
I want to quickly I have to go quick back to the all ages thing. Luckily we're still playing, and we play with a lot of much younger musicians, and then if you're a person of my age, you end up holding court. And the thing I always tell these guys about how important the Bay or any all ages show is, that is where young people learn that seeing live music is a thing one does with their time. So I'm not talking about the people in the bands. It was just when I got to Lincoln in '82. Before I was in bands, you would go to the Brickyard and saw bands, and that was part of what you did, and that is how you train people in a community to then follow bands and to continue to do that as they become old enough to drink, and then they'll see bands in bars. So I never equated playing music in bars. I just thought it was just something you did.
Yeah.
And it's just all ages venue is just really important to get to, and it generates bands. Obviously, all young people will go see their pals play, just like we would do it at the Brickyard, and you meet musicians there, and then other people who work in bands. So, well, the same thing, I could do that, and all ages venues just generate audience members and bands. It's a huge part of your community. And there was a magic time in Lincoln. There were numerous skateboard ramps. It was a really interesting, great, fun, positive network of humans that went to shows. You would skate to shows. You could ride your bike to a show, and then you'd see your buddy at the skateboard ramp, the next day. It was an interesting, very youthful community. And then Bernie and Paul, they had all their, friends from school. They had that network on top of all this. And so that's, I think, what really helped Lincoln blow up to be this really strong music center, in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Yeah. In the middle of nowhere.
Well,
the word would always get out. I remember at the Brickyard, the word would get out through touring bands like COC played there, The Faction, just all these bands that were like, if they were in a different city, they'd be, packed house or whatever. And the one thing I always heard from bands that toured through the Brickyard was like, oh, we just heard that it was just a great place to play because everyone, like, people would just come out, curiosity. And, there's no internet to help you find if you want to go see the show, like, oh, I heard, Stuhl is playing in the Brickyard. And then you type it in, you look, and I'm not going to go because that's stupid. You just went. You didn't, yeah, there's a band that played and you just went.
I love it.
And we lucked out because most of the time it was, they were diverse and crazy and punk, and it was great. DRI played there, I remember, and it was fun.
Yeah, well, that was it. It was like the record stores, like as Bernie was talking about, the people at the record stores, maybe they had heard, and these people were coming, or somebody would book that band, somebody would bring that band in, and it was.
They'd be playing that stuff in the record store. You'd walk in to, Pickle for sure, and Flaming Lips would be, playing, or Fugazi. It was.
Or Stuhl would be playing.
Yeah.
It was pretty delightful.
I'm just trying to promote that because that's project in the works.
Funny.
John, or question for
a flyer.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dan.
Yeah, flyer.
Also, okay, so currently there's it lacks the mystery. If you go see a band, you can check out YouTube. You can see what they're playing a couple nights before a band on tour or whatever. Can you think of any experiences, I guess, hearing that song, daydreaming about seeing that band, and then getting your expectations met or not met, I guess, seeing a live band back in the day?
Well, I remember listening to
You really had no idea what these bands look like.
No, you didn't. No, I remember listening to X, but then seeing them at the Drumstick, and I stood right in front of Exene, right there, and it was a billion times better. Their music is incredible, but seeing Billy Zoom, just watching them and absorbing that was, and also I think like at the Brickyard, at the Commonplace, I got addicted to seeing a personal band experience. It wasn't a big stadium. I had to see them right on top of them. That's how I wanted to see music. And that's how I wanted to, when we saw Dead Kennedys, we sat on the stage, on the side, and we were in the band, like you're in their band, in their moment, in their performance. And
there would be shows at Duffy's. You would go see
Yes.
your buddy's band. You would go see Sideshow at Duffy's, and you kind of had to get on. It was so full, you'd have to get on the stage and get on the side. That's the thing. Seeing bands at the club and that level is your eye level with it. You know, Henry Rollins is sweating on you. You know, and he's right there. You know, he's Rollins.
Or Henry Rollins is lifting weights right next to you.
Yeah.
That's what happened to it. We played at the Lift Ticket, and Henry Rollins, before they played, shirtless, was lifting weights in front of me, and I was like, "Wow, you're thick."
Touring is hard, man. You gotta make some time to.
You get to see Sideshow play, and then Ghazi would play after that. You know, it was
just your
it
brain
was
would, and then it'd be
that was our idea of normal.
Yeah, and Ian McKay was on the side lifting weights, and he was shirtless.
Not enough weightlifting, man.
Yeah. He's probably like
lifting. I think there was a whole
lifting values. I think
there was a whole culture about going out and seeing bands. You know, all your friends were going to be there. You know, so that was, even if you didn't like the band, you were going to see all your friends. So it was like this whole social scene that was developed around the band.
And now let's talk about the drinking problem.
Yeah. So I was going to say,
that was weird.
If
I've never seen that before. What was all that? That was Minneapolis, wasn't it?
I think they just painted that wall at Cog Factory.
At the Cog
that
Factory?
wall was way too nice. Look how perfect it is.
Is that?
We adjusted that wall for them.
We talked earlier that was for airflow.
I was going to say, look at the sweat there. I think the actual color of John's shirt is at the bottom there. And then the rest of it is.
Right.
There was no AC at the Cog Factory.
No, there was no.
And shout out to the Cog Factory and all those folks who did that. Rob Rathie and made an incredible scene happen up there. And so that was amazing. There's a really great YouTube video out there about all the Cog Factory and it's really
Great
fun.
documentary.
That was the main Omaha play. I mean, if you were a weird, loud band, we didn't play the bars in Omaha. We played the Cog Factory.
In the FOE hall.
You know, but it was mostly that was the main place. That was like they happened at the perfect time. There was nowhere else to play.
Yeah.
Super scary neighborhood too, if I remember.
It was. Yeah.
That was.
Yeah.
So tell us about this this cover of Cake.
So the cake people. This is a
Minneapolis magazine.
Minneapolis magazine. What their original concept was a Grant Wood American Gothic picture with John and me standing in our underwear, looking like the American Gothic painting.
But with a guitar instead of
with a guitar, and so we looked stoic in our underwear. And then Ron, because Ron is who he is and his beautifulness, said, "Well, I want to have a picture too. Take my picture." And this was his picture. And they went, American Gothic was stupid. Ron held it to. So,
we didn't even get in the magazine. The whole magazine was bands in their underwear. So you can see President of the United States, Quicksand, all these real bands, you know, Chris Mars is in there, all in their underwear. And we just did it. We knew these guys. We were on tour and did it all the way through. And Ron, as he usually would do, just came in and stole the show.
Yeah.
Ended up on the cover.
I love
That's
that.
incredible.
I mean, Fishbone, Bulldozer. He stole the cover from some big band.
He stole the cover because that is Ron. I remember that is his. You know, he took his pants. That's his underwear. That is, you know, and he was checking. He's like, oh, I don't want to kill myself, but no.
That's incredible stuff.
Beautiful Ron Albertson. You're only as good as your drummer. Am I right?
True.
That's right. That's true. Very true. Very true.
No.
Or your tuba player.
Oh, I've never seen that. That's great.
Oh, funny. That's funny.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So you had some incredible poster designs. Who predominantly did most of the posters, or was it kind of a mix of a lot of different people?
This is Ron's arm. He's giving
Is
plasma. A lot of our posters were around Albertson. That's the nice thing about drummers, is that sometimes they're also incredible artists.
Yes.
Like our good friend Paul Tisdale as well. But Ron would do our posters, or John dabbles, cut and paste artistry.
Ron did posters for all the bands, so.
This is Kozik though. That's a different group.
Yeah, we're on a Frank Kozik. I brought that one.
Yeah, and the one,
Nice.
Mike, in your background is also a Frank Kozik poster.
Yes, incredible. And
yeah.
I think I have that one.
And that's because Moss in Ritual Device knew
Tim Moss.
Kozik.
Yeah, Tim Moss.
That one.
He was the connection. Tim Moss.
Right. It's a fantastic design. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Just one.
So that's why, Ritual Device, so another amazing band, Omaha, Tim Moss.
I bet
And
that show was incredible.
Those beautiful people. Absolutely. Cool. Nice.
So cool. Well, you have some really fun. So where was this one taken? I was curious. Do you remember?
I think that's
First show in Chicago, I think.
Nope. I this is at the Speedboat Gallery in Minneapolis, actually. So it's the basement of a coffee house.
oh fun.
Oh wow.
It's a Sideshow and Mercy Roll. I think this was the first tour for Sideshow, if I'm remembering right. We played the first show together in Minneapolis, and then Sideshow's like next 8 shows like canceled. And, and so we basically the picture that you showed before with all the beer, that was like the next 8 days of staying in Marche's home in Minneapolis.
Yeah, it was March.
Yeah, it was.
Do you remember when we bought that beer? It's Cold Springs beer, and we went in and they came in like 50 totes or whatever, and you grabbed a tote. And I think we ended up just kind of walking out with a bunch of totes. For 'em. I mean, we weren't trying to steal, but I remember we all had one, but only one was paid for. And then when we drank them, like half of them had the labels upside down and everything. And then the next day, I was glad we weren't playing for 8 days, because it was just, I mean, that was the worst I ever felt in my life.
Yeah, it was rough.
I think we're like, let's practice. Never again. No. We know our songs. We're not playing anymore. Cold Springs.
Here's some more great posters here.
Funny.
Really great. Jimmy Scoffa. Shit hooked me with the poster. Yeah.
The Capitol was a restaurant.
Was it a restaurant?
The Capitol.
Yeah.
Really?
Or it used to be.
It used to be. I don't think it was when we played there. I don't think so.
I'm really
audio.
I'm really
Fashionable
proud
audio.
of this ad
The fashionable audio recordings.
because it was a take on the Calvin Klein brand of the era, and it was
Oh my God,
it really
love it.
really fits what we were up to.
Yeah.
That is so great. So here's some other great posters. These are a little more DIY, but I love this. There's great artwork here. Just fantastic.
I think what was also really cool about Lincoln is that the poster was very important, because there wasn't the internet. You did have to go to a telephone pole to figure out who was playing and where they were playing. And so you know, as a rock band, member of a rock band, you also had a staple gun, because you would have to go and put your posters up, you know, on the telephone poles.
Oh,
And that's how you would let people know.
Look at that show.
So
Look at that bill.
block-
How much would you pay to go see that bill? Oh my God.
To add on to what Heidi was saying is that how you say the triangle of rock, Pickles, Dirt Cheap, and Trader Tape in the alley that connected the two.
Yep.
Like that's where that was the episode. That's where you would find out what was going on this weekend.
Absolutely.
Yep. Absolutely.
So
Dave Raby.
there's
I'm
Dave Raby, but
Yeah,
real quick, I want to say, how many times did Fugazi come to town? Because I remember him. I remember Fugazi, the band coming, and Her Flyaway Manor was actually on the bill. This was at the Union. How many times did Fugazi come to town with Sideshow?
Twice, and then one in Omaha. Is that right?
Bernie question me.
Well, there's 89. Sideshow didn't play 89. We played the Stoker Hall in 90. This one, 91. Next one, the next one, 93. I think those were the 3 that we played with Fugazi.
Okay.
But then they came back and played.
They were in Peony Park.
That was the Peony Park. And there was like another 3 shows. So
okay.
They were super tapped in. Super lucky that band got to like play for Nebraskans.
Did you have a hand in booking that, Bernie? Did you have a hand in that?
0. I didn't have anything to do with it. It was all like Tim Moss and Dave Raby.
Okay, cool.
In getting that going. And
Nice.
So Dave, like, big shout out to Dave Raby for here he is. He was on tour with us. This was our van named Phoebe. We bought this for $400 from a guy on the Cornhusker Highway who didn't want me to see the gun in his desk. But anyways, and John helped us build this platform in the desk. And this was in Little Rock, Arkansas, as we were doing laundry at a laundromat. So the glamour really shines through, the glamour of being a touring rock band. But Dave did. I can't really articulate how important the work that Dave did for bringing bands like Bikini Kill and Unrest and just like working his ass off all the time just to bring music in to Duffy's and to Shakes and to the Culture Center and figuring all that stuff out. Dude worked his ass off all the time.
Awesome.
Rock and roll.
He did.
That's incredible. I saw him yesterday.
Production.
I saw him yesterday, and he was so happy about this, and he played a sort of a segment of his show on Thursday. Dave Raby on KZUM. So big props to Dave Raby. He's amazing. Slacker Dave.
For real. And 40% of this van was Bondo.
Bondo.
Oh, that's incredible.
It's a great color. I didn't know.
I love it.
Right.
Love it. Yeah.
It was very moist in there too.
Actually, the other thing, this was the van that my dad, who was a district court judge at the time, he said he kind of watched me roll up in this van. He's like, this is rolling probable cause.
Probably.
He's always like,
some
oh
free
yeah.
legal advice there.
We actually have a couple stories of the probable cause, don't we?
We do.
I don't know, but it wasn't. It didn't happen. We were saved by George Bush Senior at one moment because we were pulled over and the cop was rifling through our van and he saw as a goof we had George Bush's postcard up on the thing and he was going through it and he saw that postcard and he goes, "Oh yeah, they're cool." And,
well, I remember it slightly differently, Paul.
it was something like that, right?
So I remember the time when we were on our way to Chicago and we were late and we get pulled over by the police and we're in the Beauville, the van we bought from Mercy Roll, and we got pulled over and there were so many sunflower seeds and like shit and like the State Patrol officer of Illinois was so disgusted at rifling through our van. He was just like, screw it, like go on. And he didn't find the roach clip in the ashtray, so that was good.
Nice.
Oh, my.
And then were we in? Was it Rapid City that the cop pulled us over, and Rich and Ed? We were all standing there, and Rich and Ed had really beautiful long black hair, and the officer comes up to him and he goes, "So, what tribe are you guys from?" And Rich just goes, "Japanese." Mean, what
My
tribe?
mom's from Japan tribe.
It was so funny. Oh, real quick side note. This is the best story, and I love the Millions, right? The Millions, great Lincoln band. Preface that. I love them. They're great. But we were coming in from Canada, and we're coming into the United States from Canada. We're driving, and we just kind of look over. We're in line for
This van,
waiting to go through the checkpoint. We look over, and there's the Millions in like this, super van. And I think we're waving. We're like, what are the odds? Two Lincoln bands are side by side going back. That's unheard of. That's right. So we get up to the front, and we're both like side by side. And they look at the Millions. They look at us. The Millions. They go on through. And the Millions just soar through. You guys fucking park it. So for like hours, we're at this like checkpoint, and they were looking for ID. And I had a passport, but it was expired, and the photo was like coming out of it, right? And I think Rich didn't have his ID, and they were like, you could learn a lot from this guy with the passport. And I'm like, yeah, but it's expired, and the photo's coming out of it. So it sucked.
Where did you hide your shirts?
Yeah, really. Yeah.
Did you hide? Did you hide your
merch
to get in?
Yeah.
No, we didn't hide our merch.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
We had to hide our merch when we went.
That was the deal. So for people, the inside story is you'd have to pay taxes going into Canada for all the merch that you might sell to Canadians.
But we said we were
all
visiting.
the several tens of dollars of merch.
But I love the Millions.
Yeah.
I just wish that.
I think you guys, if you
They just
had
had a little cleaner image, I guess.
Yeah, you need to girl your band.
Yeah, because when they would pull, like they pulled us over in Pensacola, Florida at 3:00 in the morning, and our van, we would sweep it out in the morning. We would clean, and we'd make the bed in the back, and we'd make it all tidy. And at 3:00 in the morning, they pulled us over. We had a light out in front, and they come up to the side, and I'm driving. John's next to me, and it's Scott, Ron, and then Mark Attenberg, a guy from Relativity. They're in the back, sitting like this. Just super. They're scared, and I go, "Hi, how are you guys? What do you guys need?" We had a metal box that was welded into the middle of our van between the two front seats. It had a lock on it, and that's where we kept the money. That's where we kept everything. And so
red flag.
Yeah, and everything. And so they asked for, your registration. And so I just dove. I just like, oh, just a minute. And I dove into that, and I'm rummaging through it. And I come back, and he's making decisions about us. And he's like, yeah, you just have a light out. And I go, oh, is it that left one? Is that it? We've been having problems. Get that fixed. And no one ever pulled us over. We looked too clean.
You were not probable cause enough, Heidi.
We were not. That was our problem. I think overall, we were not probable cause.
They were like, "You're not muling beauty products, are you?"
Mike, this is a really funny thing. I had this page from a tour diary, and it might be on the next screen, but no, there's Rich recording. But I can't remember. I think it's the last line. No, it's the last line of this. It says, "We don't have a lot of food.
Day 10.
Albuquerque, San Diego, or Tampa, LA is sketchy. We don't
Rich
have
is
a lot
looking
of
mighty
food.
tasty.
Yeah. I think Dave would be a better, more meat.
This is super special.
Things are kind of lean.
LA is kind of sketchy. I love that. LA is kind of sketchy.
We don't have a lot of food.
And it's even in a different color, like the pen is different too. You're like delirious.
I'm writing this in my own blood. We're out of ink.
So hungry.
They sucked all the ink out of that other one.
Sorry, that was just fucking hilarious.
I like how you scratched out sketchy show.
Yeah.
But
It's all like, yeah, I'm all right.
wow.
I mean,
that's
after
great.
you thought about it, did you think the show went well?
I can't remember.
So Paul, tell us about this picture, Paul.
This is at Twofer's. No, not Twofer's. What was it called?
Eric Medley's place.
Yeah, Eric Medley and George
You
Amos.
saw Tubers, right? George Amos.
Their basement studio that they recorded country bands in, and we went in and did our Pure Puppet / Sideshow. And there's beautiful Rich Higgins, who can't join us tonight, but we love him so much. He's one of the absolute most unique guitar players I've ever witnessed, and I'm not just saying I'm biased, but he did stuff he does stuff I don't understand. Anyway, enough of that. He's a happy lad, but it was a really bizarre experience because that little booth I was in, it was I had the soundproofing and everything, but it was so loud in there, it was just unbearable. So I don't know what happened to all of that, but I think
That's
they were
incredible.
Eric Medley is a genius, and
He is.
he worked with what he had. So
Well, it looks like the monitor mix is actually plugged into the wall. That's pretty sweet.
yeah, and it had a nice orange couch we could lounge in and everything, and so
Yeah, those walls are insane.
And I think earlier when we were testing this whole thing, I was talking about how badly it must have smelled in that booth. I mean, can you imagine? Look at me. It's like Trog.
So great.
Yeah, they're just like, so hungry.
Is this where you recorded the first Sideshow album?
The first single, right?
Yeah, the single and
the first single.
the first
And the
the
album,
12-inch.
Yeah.
the 12-inch. Okay.
That was really, really fun, though. I can't imagine.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
Aw.
These photos are just magical. They're just really great.
I love my cymbal is about ready to just lose its shit.
Yeah.
As per usual.
Exactly.
And
then the brick in front of there.
The call out to the cinder block.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what you don't see was the milk crate.
And it was fashion and function. You could put all your crap in the milk crates and then later sit on it to drum.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Also, Paul, you're so I'm a gearhead. I'm a gear geek a little bit. But Paul's drum set would also collapse into itself essentially. If you bust a drum head, you just flip the tom over, don't replace the other one, and then you can fit the smaller tom inside of that one, inside of the bass drum. So I remember
It's
Paul
math.
math, and then all the stands can collapse into a golf bag, which
Yes.
make do with what you got. And then
Efficiency.
efficiency, exactly. But also important to me, and like the Lincoln, Nebraska sound, is the bass. Bernie and Heidi played like P basses, precision basses, or the pickups were kind of modeled off of that. And then a clean amp, and then two 15-inch cabinets, speakers in their cabinets. And then also lots of strummed power chords, or like the root note and the fifth. And this plenty of low end, but like a growling mid-range, plucky sound that I don't know. It was just, it could not be beat. And then,
cut through.
yeah.
That's very technical.
Yeah, sorry
Power
about that.
trio.
No,
That's true.
that's interesting.
Bass
Good.
good.
Means the world to me. Yeah.
That's good.
That's
Sing
incredible
those
stuff.
notes. Good.
Hey, Rich.
Yay.
Rich.
Yay. That's a 13 Nightmares
T-shirt.
t-shirt he's wearing.
Yeah,
That's
that looks like the
Hercules
Cog
shirt.
Factory. I think.
Yeah, not to get mushy, but 13 Nightmares and Mercy Rule, you and again, biased aside, you guys were the best. I mean, that was pivotal. We keep talking accolades and everything, but seeing 13 Nightmares played, just it was the. I mean, I've never have left my body, but I almost did at some of your shows. Incredible.
I have a question actually for John and Paul and Heidi. So, like, I haven't been in a band for 20 years or whatever it is now. Can't remember. But you guys are still doing it. How do you feel about being in a rock and roll band today? Like, has it changed any for you?
We're gonna
over
make
the
it.
years,
We're gonna make it one of these days.
You're gonna make it after all.
The eternal optimist.
We just gotta get that one
I don't know.
show.
Like,
We're DJ now.
I moved away 15 years ago, and I haven't had the opportunity to be in a real band. Like, how I miss it.
Move back.
But yeah, how have you absorbed this into your life now? Has it changed at all, or is it different?
And Bernie, because I think, we also miss it. I think that it's easy, Paul, being able to play with somebody who's incredible, like Paul Tisdale. We are able to come together. We write stuff. We don't practice very much. And so we really rely on Paul's brilliance. We have to remember stuff. And I think that people keep asking us to play, which I think has really been the key. I think that if they stop asking us to go and play shows, or because we do play all ages shows, and there will be kids who will say, another Mike Semrad, like we did that to Brendan, like we do that to people, which is, it's just super fun. I don't know. It's
I like that.
Yeah, it's Lincoln, Nebraska, and
like I said before, you're still valid. Everything's very available, and people still love you. That's it.
Well, and the equipment is downstairs. We own the house, so we can play. We have a practice place. We have a car that it all fits in, and why not?
Yeah.
I think that.
How do your kids feel about it?
Well, yeah. I think they're fine with that, I guess. No, I think it's weird. It's awkward. Like, Zoe, like her friends, and they'll come and they'll see one and they'll leave right away. But it's all right. I think kids see you as a different person, as something different, and being able to walk out of the house and not have to be the person who is at work, not have to be a parent, that I get to play bass guitar really loud, and I don't care that I'm not to make it, not going to make a lot of money. We're not doing anything. It's just, honestly, it's just fun. It's a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, we're going to talk money after this, because it's kind of. We haven't had that discussion yet.
It's becoming an issue.
Conversation. There's no money. Why do you play music?
Heidi kind of covered a lot of things. It's pretty easy to do it. I continually tell people I thought I would have grown out of it by now, but you don't. That won't happen. You don't grow out of it. There's not a deadline to stop playing. It feels the same. Mountains of sound. If that's something that makes you happy, then that you will always feel great. When you do that, and so that it feels exactly the same as it always has. I just happen to be, in a band with. The trick is to maybe be in a band with people that it's really easy to make music with, and
You marry a bass player.
marrying a bass player is one way. You're already 2/3 of the way toward getting everybody there for practice, and so I think being with people that it's super fun to play with. I had a feeling we wouldn't have been able to scare Paul away, but I say things like, "Hey, we're going to go play a bike race, and it might be cold, and he doesn't, sure, or we're going to go, what was the other?
Hey, do you want to open up for Paul McCartney's son? Okay.
Do you want to open for Paul McCartney? Yeah, that was just the weirdest stuff. And
The puppet show.
Yeah, he says yes. And so
we're playing in these sewers next Thursday at 2 o'clock.
Yeah. So I think everybody should, be in a band. There's people like, Brendan is like, he's so smart. I can't believe one of your band, you don't play bass in a third band. I figure drums one band, guitar in at least two, and then I thought you would be a bass player. There are people that love music apparently more than I do, and Brendan's got it figured out, I think.
Yeah.
Brendan does everything.
I learned it from watching you, Dad.
Go to your room.
Paul, why do you play in a band? Paul, tell us, why do you play in a rock band, Paul?
Well,
why do you play around?
The magazine covers. No, the thing about it is, I'll just cut to the chase and how John and Heidi got me involved was I got an email from John. It was like 3 words: drummer quit, want to join, or want to come over. And it was like, and you're not supposed to meet your heroes. No, but how I worshipped you guys. So it was like, yep. And I was there the next day. But the funniest thing, and I don't know if you know how I feel about this, it was great. I get there, right? And Heidi's not there. It's just John. And come down to the basement. I have a drum set. So I go down and it's just John and a guitar and the drum set. And it was almost like an audition. It was so awesome because I just went, okay, you're in, get in, okay. Hey, we have a show in 1 week. Here's 11 songs. Now go. And I was like, oh, shit. And so I learned like 11 songs in a week, and then we played the Sydney in Omaha, and it worked out great because drums are dumb. I mean, just and you're done.
The songs are done.
Just plow through it. You're done. It's not technique. Oh, I take that back.
The songs are done, Paul. It's 4/4.
It is. Yeah. Well, it's not dumb. You're right. It's genius. But
if you want to know what Sideshow is like in the 80s, come see a show, and Paul's exactly the same.
Yeah,
There's no
degradation.
I have not.
For the gout.
Yeah.
No, but you don't say no to John and Heidi when they offer to have you in their band. You don't say no. You can't. I couldn't. I had no out. I couldn't go, well, I'm not in a band, and I want to play in a band, and John and Heidi want me in a band. I don't know. Sounds like it's going to end up bad. But no, and I think we're going to
play with Sideshow.
Yeah,
we had just it all happened pretty fast. I did a bad thing. A drummer quit. We just saw you.
John's an asshole.
Yeah. Sideshow played a show at Bourbon downstate.
Paul just quit.
Yeah. And then we knew Paul he was still,
upright.
Yeah.
Upright.
Okay.
So it was easy to, we just jumped on him as fast as we could. It all worked out good.
You saved my drumming life for sure. I mean, I was done. So
Drumming live.
I would have been doing April Wine covers.
was saved.
So, speaking of Paul's drumming, can I just play this for just a little bit and we can listen to it? Just
Sounds
for a
like a
second.
cruise.
I want to highlight the beginning of this song real fast and just this is true rock Paul right
gosh.
here. Let's take a listen.
For Sideshow.
Can everybody hear that? I think the pure power of having a good drummer is key.
It's been done.
Like you said earlier, Heidi was right, and
Thank you.
and that to me is epic Paul right there.
Oh, thank you.
Pure power.
He would play a song. Part of we call it the Paul lap, and he would play a song with Sideshow, and invariably the drums would fall apart or loosen. Just all the things that hold a drum set together would have been beaten apart. And Paul would get up and run around, put the cinder block back. I mean, the guy moved a cinder block, right? So it's like 2 minutes. He that's out of the way. He has to go around, put the cinder block back, tighten the cymbal, and then be back in his chair in the seat before they would start the song. And he would do it. It was like every song. He would or go run and get a drumstick. And it was just that was like a exciting thing. Yeah, it was all scripted, obviously.
Yeah,
I didn't know how to tighten things. I think is the real lesson we have here. I have weak wrists.
Righty tighty, lefty loosey.
It's the fluid. It's
Yeah,
the
really.
fluid.
Ow!
I think the first time I heard that song was on the 7-inch, the Russ 7-inch, and that video was Face Foot Ladder, if I recall correctly. But I remember putting that 7-inch on and listening to it and being like, wow, that's pretty cool drum beat there. Like Paul's really going. And I was playing it at 33 and a third rather than 45 RPM. And then I was like, oh shit, when I hear like, it's like, oh, that's droney as hell. And then I'm like, oh shit. And all of a sudden you go, it's again, mind blown, taking notes, stealing every little bit of it.
Absolutely.
Funny.
Incredible.
Yeah.
That is funny. So I think that punk rock though, overall, like when Jim Jones saw it, brought it back from London, punk rock is such a great medium to be a part of because it's all about, I can do that. It's all about, there are no rules. And kind of as a person who's still playing in a band, still doing this, I have to remind myself of that clause. There are no rules. So it doesn't matter that maybe I am, in fact, 56 years old. I can still play this music. Do you see the bylaws are clear? There are no rules. So
no rules.
I am going to do that.
Well, I hope somebody someday makes a documentary about all you people, and it's called No Rules. I think that would be really awesome.
Got that right, Jim.
Yeah, it's incredible.
There
Man.
you
It's
go.
incredible. I want to share. Paul. Whoops, that's not what I want to do. Hold on. 1 second. I want to share this with you guys. There we go. So Paul sent me this link, and he's made a blog on sideshowhistory.blogspot.com. And this has got some more cool flyers real quick. I just wanted to share. So Bad Brains, which is incredible.
The greatest 15-minute show ever done.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Bad Brains played on foldable tables at an old grocery store. Yeah, we did too. And as you're playing, these foldable tables were folding, and they said no, screw this, and they didn't. They left.
Basically, the whole stage moved and stuff fell over.
The PA was falling on
It
people.
was a bad scene.
Oh, bum.
Bad Brains.
Very bad scene.
And I don't want to, I don't want to get in trouble, but I think HR was high.
What?
I don't know that for sure.
Yeah,
I don't want to get in trouble, but
I saw HR this summer at the Rebellion Festival in England.
Was he wearing a purple?
He did not like it.
Oh, I like it. I love him though.
Yeah.
Oh, look at 311 opened for Sideshow.
Look at that. Wow.
We
Look
showed
at that.
we showed them. Where are they, huh?
So Such Sweet Thunder's on that bill. Another great Nebraska.
Yeah.
Such Sweet Thunder was awesome.
Yeah, that's Steve on bass. Yep.
Three
Steve Stryker.
Jason Carlson with Tom Irvin.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tom Irvin, awesome.
Sam the
We did Tom Irvin and Sideshow did a Ramones band together, which we have video of, and it's fantastic. Tom Irvin, who's a genius in my book, he made a Gabba Gabba Hey poster, but instead of being punk rock, he was a designer, so it was like in this like Helvetica type or whatever. It's like, super well made and proper and
Beautiful font.
exactly.
So I see I see cursive. on
Cursive,
it.
wow.
Yeah, what
Way
happened
at the
to
bottom
them,
of the
right?
bill.
Yeah.
We'd rather be
Yeah.
flying Mogus Brothers.
See, this
It
is
was
just
so good.
proof of how you've influenced all these.
Yeah,
great,
launching 1,000 ships.
great.
And going down with it.
Hey, Paul, wait, was this VFW Hall the one where was this?
That was at the Rockin' Teepee, the Vex show. Remember Vex?
Oh, no, this is the VFW Hall, it says.
Oh.
Was this the one where, like, the first show on our tour where we got paid $1 and we taped it to the dashboard of the car?
Oh, yeah. I bet you're right.
Good luck.
Anyways, no.
Nice.
We need Rich here to help us out with this. And there's my
I don't remember.
Oh my
Who's
God.
playing? I don't know. It's hippie.
Wow, that's a great.
Look at the millions they played, but look how I wrote it down. It's so dumb.
Just slurping down the side.
Yeah,
Great.
really. Cringe was great.
Oh, there's
Culture Center, not the
There's
commonplace.
that's a
Funny.
there's quite a band.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's great.
Cool. How
So these
fun.
are all so I urge people to go check these out. These are on sideshowhistory.blogspot.com. Paul made this. I assume you put this together. Yes.
Yes, yeah.
This is great. So fantastic. Well, guys, I just can't say how awesome this has been. I mean, it's like getting the Goonies back together. This is incredible. So
Can I just promote my cassette tape business?
yeah, and yes, and don't forget about Paul's cassette tape.
Poorly made cassettes.
Yeah. The punk rock thing didn't work out for Paul, but he found a future in cassette duplication.
Making me tens of dollars.
That's so funny.
He's the
I like the punk rock didn't work out. You're right.
Never saw it coming.
No, never saw that coming.
So we have some great comments that I'll let to you guys, leave to you guys to go back through and maybe answer some questions. There's some people that remember shows and again have been life-changing moments of hearing your music and through time and experience. And just like my personal experience, again, just as a youngster saying to yourself, much like Jim Jones said, I can do that. It's that simple, right?
Hard
It's
can
that
it be?
simple. But at the same time, being intimidated by the incredible amount of rock sound coming out of you guys.
The
At the
volume.
same time, just being inspired. So I love each and every one of you for doing this, and thank you so much. Do you guys have anything else to add for these lovely people tuning in tonight?
Thank you very much. How fun to talk to. Good to see you, everybody.
Right.
I hope everybody's well.
Yeah, thanks for providing this forum so we can all see each other and talk about the
Trust
old
me.
days.
Man, it's my pleasure, and I can't wait to do it.
This could easily go to midnight because I have notes.
Paul's got
When we played West Virginia, we had. Oh, I do have one quick story that I have to tell. It's like 30 seconds. Okay.
No, we're not on a time limit here. So.
Okay. We in '91 we played in San Francisco at Raji's. It was San Francisco, right?
LA. Los Angeles.
LA. Raji's
LA.
in LA. And Bernie's heard the story probably every time we have to do an interview, which is all the time. We played this show, and the opening band for us was actually one guy, and he did Carpenter's covers, and he actually
Karaoke.
It was a karaoke, and he did this. He had this drum beat with Carpenters, and he sang Carpenter songs, and
close to you. It was close to you.
Close to and I loved it. It was so great because it's so weird. It was so freaking weird, and the stage is all weird. And halfway through, there was a drum break, and the drum machine was gone, and he was kind of swooning back and forth. Then he pulls out a jar of mayonnaise, a full jar of mayonnaise, opens it up, and slowly consumes the entire jar of mayonnaise. And slowly walks off the stage, pulls a garbage can over, and expels the mayonnaise into the garbage. Just eating garbage mayonnaise. And then goes back and finishes the song. And at that moment, I looked at Rich and Bernie and I said, I love what we're doing. But there might be some room here for, some experimentation. No, I didn't say that. That was one of the best moments on tour ever, is seeing a guy actually.
Oh my gosh.
I do remember him being a little bit covered with mayonnaise. And
it was a delicious show. Delicious.
And so he was all covered in like mayonnaise-y spittle, and he was close to you.
Wasn't that great?
It was.
And then it's like,
maybe too.
And next Sideshow. Fuck it.
Everybody left.
Yeah. No mayonnaise.
No mayonnaise.
Son of a bitch. Well, that was my favorite show, I think, of all time. Just I changed course from that.
Was that better than the show that we played in Berkeley, where we got paid in a dumpster dive bag of bagels?
Bagels, right? And wasn't that with a Rancid show? We played with Rancid or Exploited?
No, it was either Rancid or Total Chaos, but there was not enough
that's what it was.
money in the kitty and they're like, hey guys,
we don't have any money, even though it was packed.
But here's a dumpster dived like garbage bag full of bagels.
But wasn't Total Chaos? It wasn't Total Chaos like
fine.
Chaos, yeah.
Fine.
Let's just drive to that desert place cafe that we actually loaded in, looked around, and then loaded out and left. LA sucks.
This is going to be
the worst place to tour ever. That's so awful. Go east, never go west. Well, no offense, Jim. No offense. Not west. You're west.
The drive.
Hey, Bernie, they're dissing us.
The drives are longer, right? The drives are longer when you go west in between towns.
Yeah.
But so there's a question about favorite towns to play. So between Mercy Rule memories and Sideshow memories, was there a just a high play that you'd either return to or beyond just a sweet memory, but like.
I loved Kalamazoo because that was off the charts. That was full blown martial law in Kalamazoo, if you ask me. It was just kids just like, let's play here and then break windows and we'll play next door tomorrow or whatever it is.
Oh, funny.
Noel Wick, was that right?
We really liked playing the Midwest. Like you play Minneapolis or Columbia, Missouri, Lawrence, Kansas. We played Manhattan, Kansas. A lot of the places in the Midwest, like you could tell where a band had come from. Like I could pick out what a East Coast or what a West Coast band or a Midwest band sounded like. Everybody kind of had a sound. And the Midwest bands are very like it is straightforward. It's just like that Sideshow song you just played. It's just gonna punch you in the head, and that's the Midwest. And so I always liked playing to those crowds. I like playing any of those venues. We would play. Where did we play? We played in West Virginia. At this club, and it was to the kids getting off of the third shift. So the show didn't start until like 2 a.m. That was when it started. But the kids got off and they went nuts. There was always just these weird little corners. I think that if I could go back in time though, I'd probably go back to King's Court in Sioux City, Iowa.
Yeah.
And
Pete, remember Pete?
Let's not go back there.
Let's definitely go back there.
I'm with Heidi. Let's go back to the King's Court.
King's Court, because it was an abandoned school, and you drive up to it, and it looks terrifying, and it was. Because inside, you would play in the gymnasium, and the kids would just pour. There was tons of people who would come. The kids would come out and see bands. And then they would smoke as many cigarettes as they could, as fast as they could. So you can imagine gymnasium. It has this amazing tall ceiling, and you're on the stage, and so you're way up. You're up in that. And I remember coming up to the microphone and trying to breathe, like to breathe in, and there was nothing. There was no air at all. And you just
plus the King's Court was super amazing. That was in Sioux City, Iowa. For me, it was Logan, Utah, actually, which is like I don't know how we got connected with Logan, Utah. So like back then, you would get some other bands like tour sheet and in the context of the club booking agent, the folks booking those shows. I have no idea where I came up with whoever booked those shows in Logan, Utah. But twice we went there and they were amazing. Some little VFW hall, and clearly the kids' rock shows didn't come through very quickly or very often, and they were starved for rock and roll. Like playing on the linoleum floor and slipping because of the condensed sweat in the room was awesome. Super good.
And in Logan, I am not a pothead, but I remember we showed up a day early, and this guy was like, "Hey, you want a hit?" And I'm like, "Well, okay, we're not playing tonight, so I'll take a hit." And I was like, and I took a hit of this. I think Rich, maybe I'm not going to speak for him because that's libel, but I took a hit, and I remember he goes, "Yeah, we grew this up in the mountains because they don't allow." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And all of a sudden, I started like losing control of my faculties. And I've never experienced anything like that, in my life ever. And then even the next day when we played that night I was still like on edge. What's in the soil here? What's happening here? And it's because they can't buy beer in Logan, Utah. It's all government liquor store or whatever, and the beer's like $3, so they just grow this nightmare weed that I thought, hey, I smoked pot before, this will be over in an hour, and I ended up then just in this
fetal position
spiral of anxiety and terror. But the show was great. It was fun. Like Bernie said, it was just this moving around, having so much fun. I'm not an egomaniac, but I really am at heart. And this guy came up to me after the show, and I had to sign a broken drumstick for him. I remember I was still a little bit loopy, and I signed it like just this weird like snake line or whatever. I should have put like Neil Bird. That Logan, Utah, you're right, Bernie. That was just memorable. They were so sweet.
It's good stuff.
I've been to some clubs in Utah. Those Mormon kids, they go crazy. They're just like so repressed. They just love that.
Yeah. Exactly. And they're high.
Yeah. Mormons love to get high, right? That's the key there.
I think it's in their Bible.
So Bernie touched on something that we haven't really talked about, is that the booking of shows. I mean, going back to the 50s with my uncle, his style, he called it rambling. When they would roll through a town and simply not book anything, they wouldn't make a phone call or let anybody know, but they would show up and they would let people know that they were there, and the word would spread like wildfire that there was a show that night. And with you guys, it was mostly by phone and mail, right?
Well, yeah, it was definitely by phone. I mean, the first tours that I booked, I think I had like a $600 phone bill, like in 1990. Crazy.
Wow.
The story of what, rambling? Is that what you call it?
Yeah, my uncle in the 50s.
I'm a rambling man.
I have a deep desire to ramble.
Yeah.
like we've got a rock show. Hey guys, like here we are. Let's rock. Like that's punk. That's
very cool.
Amazing.
That's a great idea.
That is a great idea.
But like the mechanics of booking shows at the time was there was actually a published book by Maximum Rock and Roll, the punk magazine in San Francisco, and it was basically anybody who
book your life.
Yeah, book your own life is what it's called. And so you could buy this at the newsstand, and it was just a directory of like the punk community, and that's how, for better or worse, I booked several tours of Sideshow. But you know, it was just kind of an amazing time of like disconnectedness of these scenes, and it's basically a classified of, hey, we'll book any band, and it could be some crazy punk house or somebody who would book you in a VFW, and you'd stay with the mom who would book you or bake you pancakes in the morning.
That was Virginia, West Virginia.
Yeah, exactly.
That's also my notes, West Virginia.
Nice.
West Virginia.
Mine, Paul.
In 30 seconds or less, I'm going to tell you another story. In West Virginia, we played in the forest of this West Virginia place. You drove weird, and it was like a weird lodge, looked like a cabin. We're in this cabin. Oh my God. And the band that was going to play after us was called Pale Hecate. But the guy who was the drummer had one of those drum sets that you have to, it's got the bars and the cage and everything like that. There were like 5 bands that night. We were the second to last. They played last. He spent the entire night setting up this drum set. I took him like an hour and a half to get his drum setting. And of course I got photos behind it like it was mine. It was awesome. But that show was super funny because a 16-year-old girl had booked the show, and it was a packed show, and she ended up getting just wasted. I mean, she couldn't like, people were, and we were staying at her house, which was weird. 16-year-old, have these 3. Anyway, we'll get to that. But the best part was I was in the parking lot, and this guy comes running up to me, and I've got long hair and beard and everything, and he goes, "Schmitty! Hey, Schmitty, what'd you get out, Schmitty?" And Rich, if he were here, he'd collaborate my story. I go, no, I'm not Schmitty. And he goes, "No, Schmitty. What? Hey," and he's yelling to his friend, "Schmitty." And a couple other guys are, "Hey, Schmitty, what'd you get out?" And in hindsight, I should have gone, "Yeah, I'm Schmitty." But then I probably got shivved because I was obviously out of jail. So I had to convince these guys I was from Nebraska and not Schmitty. So that was great. But then we go back to her house and we sleep, and she was so awesome because we slept in the basement, And then, do you remember, Bernie, the walls were covered in bands and everything? And then secretly there's our poster, and it was like, oh my God, that's the best thing a band could ever ask for on earth, is that some kid has pre-thought, they actually enjoyed your band so much they put a poster up. What the hell? I didn't know what to do with that information. I was just like, you just put that up, didn't you? But then we slept there, and like Bernie just said, next morning her mom's down there. You guys all want pancakes? Yeah, let's take pancakes. And she coined the phrase "wick." You hear that? She's like, "Y'all are wick." And for the rest of the tour, we just kept going, that band was wick. West Virginia. There are 5 good people in West Virginia.
I think the moral of the story is.
The moral of the story is that when a 16-year-old girl wants you to stay at her house as a punk rocker, make sure her mom's cool with it, and she was. Right? Is that what you're saying?
And also, go out and play your music and meet all the crazy people in the world.
Do you remember that was in a forest? That was in a freaking forest. I mean, we're driving up this hill. It's like, well, we're totally. There's no GPS. There's no Google Maps or anything. It's just like a forest. We're Sideshow. We're driving through a forest in West Virginia to play a show. And then, hey, there it is. All these kids.
Is that short for wicked? Maybe.
Is that short?
Yeah, that's right.
He owes me money. No, I'm in Sideshow.
It's like wick.
Yeah.
Short for
Wick.
Wick. That was fucking wick.
It's pretty ahead
And
of
she
its time.
had the accent too. She's like, y'all are wick. Okay, young lady.
That's
I don't know what that means.
Is that a compliment?
Yeah. I don't know. Just get in the van. Let's go.
We still don't know to this day.
They don't know.
Like you
I'm
physically
sorry
got
I'm usurping the time here, but
you physically got that close to her and asked her that question.
So,
People in Nebraska are
pancakes,
close talkers. Close talkers in Nebraska.
So
this is
our band, we 13 Nightmares got Ingrid Bangers to book our band a little tour. And we went out east, and she used the Billboard magazine that came to Pershing Auditorium. And she would look in the back, and it would list shows. It like Billboard magazine would, or maybe it was, but it was Billboard. But it was a
Polestar.
Oh, Polestar.
And Polestar would had a list of every show that would be played and what the attendance was and the money.
tickets.
And there would be, so you'd have like Journey and Rush, but you'd also have like all the cool bands like Dinosaur Jr. They played Misty's and they got $600 or whatever. So she would look for the dub bands like us and put together these little 2-week. I'm trying to pick a word for it.
Forays.
Horrendous.
They were great.
Horrendous. It was great to go out of town, but these were the first trips, and these are where you learn everything not to do.
Sure.
It's like oh, you're not. It was horrible, but
it was super fun. But Ingrid Bangers helped us, and then when Wayne Coyne in the Flaming Lips, when we talked to him, he had somebody book his band, Michelle.
Yes.
Michelle, and he said, "I'll have her send you the list." Oh. And he had a list of places to play, like the Drumstick. Like just the weird little places across the country that a band like Flaming Lips or, like us, like anybody could go play. And he sent it to us. Wow. And I remember, I hope we did this. I want to say we did. I hope we gave copies out to people and said, here, we got to go. Let's get out. Here's the list. But it really was an address and a phone number of like a Dave Raby or somebody in another town. Wow. And they would pick up the phone and say, you could send them their tape, or you could say, we know these people, maybe we could play there. And it was a lot of phone calls, and it was a lot of just trying to put everything together.
It was torture. It would take you, I just I'll use it. I'm not picking on them. I'm going to say Gabe's Oasis, for example. This is Iowa City's place. Just another dumb bar, but a really fun, great place. I saw Dinosaur Jr. there, and it would take you 5 to 10 phone calls just to figure out the schedule of the Robertson guy that would book the club. So you'd be 5, 6, 7 phone calls into it,
he doesn't work now.
No,
he works.
he's supposed to be in, but he's not. And it was hilarious. You finally get a hold of him, and they say, "Hey, we sent you stuff. Did you listen to the stuff?" He goes, "I haven't listened to it yet." Okay, so you finally got a hold of him. And then you basically have to start over. I'll go back and listen to it. And then, you're begging. We'll play with anybody, but he's a club guy, so he's trying to book you with similar bands. But you would be desperate enough. You didn't care. You would take any show.
Yeah.
But that was just it. It was just mountains of phone calls and you go to the post office or go to the mailbox and your stack of. You'd have a press kit. We all had press, I got that Caulfield record, logo on there, and you felt so cool, and you were, you didn't know, and so you would.
But it was magic markered out with something else.
And that's how you did it. You just had to snail mail everything, and then try to get it, time it where you could get a hold of the guy, and he would remember your thing, and that they would get. I remember. When Dave Raby started doing Duffy's, Duffy's was pretty cool. They had their own little newspaper called Duff Stuff, and I wrote for it, and I would write about the bands that were coming, and I would call them on the road and interview them. It was really cool. But I would go up in their little attic, and you'd see the stack. Same thing, the stack of kits that would come in. For Dave to go through and try to pick bands. Yeah. And Dave did it, again, the reason Dave Raby's name comes up because there was kind of a magic moment when the Brickyard, I think, stopped shows, and then we were all trying to get into play the drumstick, and then it closed. And so the whole scene, we all had there was what do we do next? And then Dave Raby taught Reg at Duffy's to have bands on the 2 crappy nights of the week. And so
still to this day.
Sundays and Wednesdays, right?
Yeah, Wednesday, Sunday.
And you would just go automatic. And there would be bands from all over the country because Lincoln is in a good spot. The band's going toward Denver. If they didn't do Omaha, they would do Lincoln.
Between Chicago and Denver, or Iowa City, or Minneapolis.
So Dave would have to go through all the packets too. I didn't. I remember looking at them or making sure, I knew, there was a band called 5/8 we played with, and they, I remember telling Dave, "You gotta have this band play," and they sent the packet to them. And 5/8 I think played Duffy's and/or Shakes. They were great. They were a band that we played with, and again, you would trade information. It was always, who's booked? You have a booking agent. I remember that was just a big deal for us. Was we couldn't get out of the Midwest. It was hard to book yourself past a certain point. If the list we had were mostly bars. The other one, the Maximum Rock and Roll, that was more underground, right? That's it was hardly any bars, right? It was all, wasn't that mostly it was that circuit?
Yeah, mostly the punk rock, super all ages house shows. I remember the scariest floor that I ever slept on was as a result of that particular publication. It was one of those I'm not sleeping here. I'm arm wrestle you for the sleep in the van. Anyway.
I love it, man. But these are the things that shape us, right? Yeah.
I want to say it was a South Dakota show, actually. I can't remember. It's all. I do remember sleeping with the tire iron in Madison.
Wow.
Yeah, you're like, like, okay, this is gonna be all right.
I remember sleeping in Blooming. We were in Bloomington, Bloomington, and it was in a dark room. And I stay up all night, but I was super tired, and it was a snowstorm. And you could barely move, and so I went to sleep in this dark room with like 2 or 3 other bands. Right, it was just like, and someone had put on the phonograph Clash's "London Calling," that album, and it would play through, and I was like, okay, oh, finally it's over, or whatever. Needle would go, and it would start over. It was super dark, and I was cozy, and I didn't want to get up. It went on for like 4 or 5 hours of Needle. And to this day, I hate the Clash.
I hate the Clash.
They're legends. No, they're not. But that was it. I remember that because that was the one night I decided not to stay up with the partiers or whatever, and I was just like, London Calling, oh God!
Life choices.
Yeah.
Life choices, man. That's when you throw your shoe at the record player.
Yeah. Well, it was dark.
Yeah. Where do you throw?
And I seem to remember it was when we were on tour with Scott Cottle, and he could have stopped it, but did he? No, he likes that.
I think he slept like a rock.
He did.
You couldn't wake Scott up.
Well, props to Scott Cottle. We would not have had easy tours without him either. So Scott Cottle.
He made your
my aunt bought Scott Cottle.
We shared Dave Raby on tour. He went with our band. We tried to kill him once, and he went with Sideshow. And then Scott. It was a weird thing. We always took a sound guy with us because I didn't want to talk to the sound men, and he would always get like 10% of what we would make. We would feed him and give him a place to sleep, and then 10% of whatever we got. So he got a lot of $5 payouts, lots of them, mostly $5. But he built cases for our amps, and Brendan's got the metal. If you look in the back there, that's one of them that he's still alive, and that thing's probably 20 years old.
He made me a
25
snare
maybe.
case. Maybe a snare case that you could throw off a building and go pick it up. Oh, here it is.
We had these 4 friends that we would trick into going, hey, you want to see the world? It's like, yeah, you're gonna be sleeping in dog piss, and where that one place that we slept in dog piss.
Yeah.
You're gonna be sleeping in dog piss. Come on. It was that.
It's the best time ever.
Yeah, any story you hear that he says, no, that never happened. It absolutely happened. Oh yeah. We had a camping mat, and we got done sleeping. We were rolling it up the next day. It's like, hey, this mat's all soaking wet, and we were
in piss,
sleeping in a pool of urine, or assuming it was from a dog.
Yeah.
So
I think you just renamed the documentary "In Piss."
We assumed it was a dog, but it was never bad enough that we're never gonna do it again. So it was that 30-minute show would wipe away all the horrible, and then you're like, it would be amnesia. You'd have a great show, and then you'd forget about all the horrible stuff.
Right.
And then it would happen again, but you would have your mind kind of erased because the show was good, and it was just like you were on a loop.
It was an adventure. It was then you were driving along. I remember driving up to cities, and Ron and Scott would be, oh my gosh, it's Atlanta, Georgia. It was exciting. It's like, yeah, we get to go somewhere. We did a lot of touristy stuff. I don't know if Sideshow did.
Niagara Falls,
we did Niagara Falls. Yeah, we did that.
I was asleep.
We did the St. Louis. We went up the St. Louis Arch. We did the Grand Canyon.
Oh, I've got the Grand Canyon. I remember we were at a Denny's in Falstaff, and we're like, okay, guys, should we go to the Grand Canyon? And we're basically counting our money. And it was like, we don't have enough gas money to go to the Grand Canyon.
No.
Yeah, it was like a super wah.
But there's the giant ball of spring.
And nobody had credit cards back in those days. It's like now kids have credit cards, you know. It's like, no, we had no money.
Yeah. Well, that's when gas was like $1.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Right.
Like it is now.
I remember getting to Los Angeles and freaking out because gas was $1.35. I remember we got there. Oh, how do you be a band here? This is crazy. And it was, it's very, oh no, what are we gonna do?
Fuck you, Reagan.
I remember getting
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles like right after the riots, and it was all burned out, and you're like,
Oh,
Incredible.
Mike, you're gonna have to stop us, otherwise we're
Hey.
gonna go up.
it's devolved.
I don't want to be I don't want to be responsible for ending this amazingness. Seriously, but I will say this has been unbelievable. These stories that might not come out in your typical interview. I love that. I love that. It's when you get people in the same room and you start remembering the worst and the best. And I think the worst and the best craft what it's all about. It crafts memories of the beauty of it all, right? I mean, you can't have it perfect.
Crab sandwich.
That's
The
right.
worst and the best.
baloney.
Yeah. Oftentimes, what was the worst at the time? Now you look back and you think it was the best.
That's right.
That's true.
In North Carolina, I got poison ivy and I didn't know it, and then I got poison ivy on my wiener. so we did the rest of the tour with poison ivy in my nose zone. That sucked. And the worst part was convincing people that it was an accident, that I had poison ivy in the area.
Sorry, did you just say no zone?
That's wick.
That's a wick.
It was true.
No
And it
zone.
boiled over. It was so gross. I didn't know what to do. And then I got like a lot of suspicious looks.
Oh my god.
It was really awful.
This is also, this is why you have a girl in the band. No one says the word wiener.
Wiener.
No.
Well, I think that's the medical term.
No wieners.
Wow.
It's a soft landing to a very personal event. You know.
Next time you get a physical, just say, okay, let's get the wiener out in the no zone.
Dr. Chestnut, I've got a problem with my wiener.
We
My nose
presented
zone.
to madness, Mike. Help us.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
I'm going to point to the problem area on this doll.
Reel it back.
I'm telling
Reel
you,
it back.
this is absolutely amazing. Well, can I just say that each little square I'm looking at is it could be its own podcast. It could be its own video podcast. To get all of you guys together has been really special. And I know there's so much more to talk about and so much more so many more rabbit holes we could go down. But I just appreciate everything about it. And Brendan, thanks for joining us. My idea was to kind of segue into sort of the next generation that was influenced, which was my era, probably from like 95 to 2001 maybe. When we used to do shows at the Culture Center and house shows, and when Hootenanny and M80 and Rocket FM used to team up with all her Flyaway Manor guys and
Right on Blue and Rent Money Big.
Wastoid.
Wastoid, exactly.
So there's numerous stories, but all those bands were influenced by these people, and that's what I love.
And thanks to Jim and Bill Jones,
that's right.
setting the foundation. Daniel Kelly.
Daniel Kelly.
So it's
These are Sarah Cavanda.
Sarah
paintings.
Cavanda.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
These are
Absolutely.
her paintings right behind us. Sarah
love it.
Cavanda. Thank
I
you,
love it.
Sarah.
Thank you, Mike, also, by the way, organizing.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
This is
And-
like,
and-
yeah.
To Jim Jones, I want to say I actually have lived my whole life wishing I had been maybe 5 years older because I loved your scene.
Yeah.
But I saw the photos and stories and like it's
You know, and I
all
always
the
feel like
turtlenecks and-
I left Lincoln like right before you guys all came along, and I missed all that because I feel like from '84 to like '94 was probably like the heyday of Lincoln music. It's like that's when you guys were really
You're
going national.
You're totally one of my heroes, and I mean that from my heart.
Yeah, it would never have
You
happened.
and Bill,
Thank you.
you and Bill, there's no
And,
two better ambassadors for Lincoln music.
Great.
The capital
you.
punishment scene can be its own thing. I think that is
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
that's
definitely.
that's one thing that I want to know more about, and I need to know more about, and I can't wait to learn more about. So it's great to meet you, Jim, and thank you for being a part of this tonight.
Hooray!
And we
Thank you for inviting me.
we
Thank
should
you.
have addressed
Had a
the
great
elephant
time.
in the room too. Is that Brendan is probably the most talented of all of us. So.
Yeah, it's true.
I
It's
just
true.
studied, I watched what you guys were doing.
You're a king,
all you people,
among
Heidi included. Yeah,
Wow.
You're the
thank you.
best.
Very
I
kind.
think
Incredible,
next
man.
generation just gets better. They're better musicians.
It snowballs. It snowballs.
Right, right.
Even though they're chipped.
And I don't think I'm better than any of you. So
Well,
thank
I will
you.
say I admire I admire the relationship between Brendan and Bernie because I've always known that I've always known that Bernie
Very Brady Bunch.
Yeah.
Bernie influenced. That's tough to do. It's the opposite, so it's tough. But it was
Yeah, it is.
very prevalent. You know, Brendan learned a lot from him, and so that was really cool. So
Yeah.
major influence, and I'm still learning a lot
Well,
from.
I mean,
from,
what a great-
from folks. So it's great stuff.
And what a great thing to say about Lincoln that here's like 3 generations of punk rock and we
Right.
all like love each other and respect each other. I mean, that's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Absolutely.
And also, 6 months ago, I found out, maybe a year ago, found out that there are 20-year-old kids doing house shows, punk rock
Yeah.
shows in
Right.
Lincoln, Nebraska.
In
Like
Lincoln.
for somehow, like as a 35-year-old up to 39-year-old, I wasn't being invited to these, so I didn't know that they were happening. Believe it or not. And then I started going there, and people would wonder who the cop was. I'd go like solo and just being like, "Wow, what are you kids doing?"
It's a judge's
It's
son.
amazing. It's still happening. Lincoln is still doing shit, and
Yeah.
cheers to that, right?
There's Marina Kushner and all these great,
Yeah.
younger generations that are being influenced, and I love seeing it, and I hope that boils, and I hope they keep coming out to see Heidi and John play and her Flyway Manor play.
Their own
And
fucking bands.
Their
Yeah.
own
Good
own
stuff.
bands are bubbling up. So much love, everybody, and the Hall of Fame loves you guys, and I can't wait to someday induct all of you. So this is going to be great. So so this is going to be fantastic, and I love that this is the first episode because it kicks it off in a way that is it's rough around the edges, and it's something that the Hall of Fame hasn't seen before. And you guys have molded so many great musicians, and we can't thank you enough. So
Yep.
thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
guys.
Thank you, Mike.
All right.
Mike.
Cheers.
Okay.
You're the best.
All right. We're going to
Love you
tune
guys.
off now. So,
Cassettes are us.
yes. Au revoir to the scene. Wow.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Much love. Have a good night, y'all. We'll see you next time. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. All right. Adios. All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. My name is Mike Semrad with the Nebraska Performing Arts Hall of Fame. Thank you so much for all of the guests tonight. What an incredible laugh, an incredible walk down memory lane. So I hope to keep doing these. So keep an eye out and make sure to fan and share the Nebraska Performing Arts page. And to all you friends and people that lived it, and people that don't know, and people that want to learn about it, thank you so much. And we'll keep it brewing and keep the music scene in Nebraska alive, healthy, and well. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Much love. Peace.